What's the deal with all this drama? Like you supposed to be my mama, and you supposed to be my sister, and you supposed to be my brother, loving one another. I thought, but nowadays I'm caught deep in thought, 'cause saints don't act like they are. Take me back, Lord, to the first when family reunion was on Sunday at the church. 'Cause things seem strange instead of familiar, instead of edifying. Saints want to kill you, see you dying.
All right.
And I'm crying out for those who knows how the Spirit of God flows with love, agape, and I pray that we will unite and form a holy posse and do this thing for the newborn King, giving hope to the meek through the joy He brings.
What's the deal? Why is it so hard to keep it real? All right. What is the deal? What is the deal, and why is it so hard to keep it real? I love that song. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're listening to this live or replay. My name is Oliver Blue, and I am your temporary guru, coach, mentor, guide for this workbook lesson out of the spiritual book, A Course in Miracles. And it gives me a great delight. It gives me great delight. And it's my pleasure to be sitting in this chair with you in this moment in history, which is the greatest moment that there is. Why? Because it is the present moment. And in reality, we have learned that there's only the present moment. The past is gone. The future is not guaranteed. The only thing that is guaranteed is right now. I love the way that the Course in Miracles label it. It calls it this holy instant. The only thing that we can do anything about is this instant, this moment, right now. And so why is it so hard to keep it real right now? But we're going to keep it real in this moment as we look into workbook lesson 190. Actually, this is part 2. Really didn't get into the content on yesterday because I went off on these detours. But anyway, thank you for being here. And we're just going to jump right in and remind you that the idea for workbook lesson 190, or the thought for today, is this: I choose the joy of God instead of pain. I choose. You choose. I choose. Everyone chooses. Every day, all the time. In fact, we stated that our life is the accumulation of our choices. All of our experiences are the accumulation of our choices. And the one thing that we have that can never be taken away from us is our ability to choose. Choose how we experience life. Choose how we experience every moment. We may not be able to choose the external circumstances, situations, or conditions, but we certainly get to choose how we experience them. And so today we're going to be talking about choosing for joy, or choosing the joy of God. There's a scripture that we shared with you yesterday. I think it was out of Psalm 16:11, where the writer says, in God's presence, or in the present moment, or in this holy instance, there's fullness of joy and pleasures forevermore. That means that where the joy, the peace, the love, the happiness has been placed where it truly resides, only in this holy instant, only in the present moment. in God's presence or in the presence, there is fullness. Notice now, fullness of joy. So all the joy that there is, all of the joy that we desire is in this holy instant, this present moment, not in the past, not in the future. Only things that's in the past is guilt. Only thing in the future is anxiety. We don't want either one of those. Anytime you go back digging up the past, you're digging up guilt. Anytime you are anticipating the future, you're creating anxiety. But when we remain present, when we give our energy, our focus, our attention to this present moment and to the reality that this is the only reality that there is, this present moment, it is in that we find the fullness of joy. And as a bonus, it says pleasures forevermore. And so today, as we look at the choice for joy, joy is a choice. We also going to look at the other option to joy, and that is pain. Because to not choose for joy is to choose for pain, whether we know it or not. And we're going to be approaching this subject of pain from a very non-traditional point of view, but it's true. It's something that we are blind to. We've all been taught that pain is a result of, some malfunction or some mishap. But we're going to be finding out today from a different perspective what pain is all about and how we can overcome it. And so the choice for joy, the choice for the joy of God instead of pain is yours. Pain is a wrong perspective. Pain is a wrong perspective. Pain is not a cause, but it's an effect. It's an effect of something, of a wrong perspective. Perspective has to do with our perception. It has to do with the way we think. It has to do with the way we interpret things. And so here it's saying that pain, as we know it, is a wrong perception. In other words, pain is a perception more so than it is a physical experience. And that the solution to the physical discomfort is a shift in our perception. That means that we have complete control or the complete antidote within ourselves to address the pain. It says pain is a wrong perspective. When it is experienced in any form, it is proof of self-deception. So pain begins in our perception. Our perception happens within our minds. And so we experience pain in many forms. And in any form, it is a proof. Notice now, it is the effect of self-deception. So pain is the result of self-deception. Ultimately, it's what we're learning here. I tell you, we're not coming at this and you already know that we're not coming at this from a traditional point of view, from what we've been taught. But this is revelation that we're receiving this morning. We say that it is not a fact at all. Pain is not a fact. But pain is something that comes and goes. It shifts. Facts remain constant throughout eternity. Real facts are eternal. Like the fact that God created you in his image and likeness. That's eternal. We can't change that. But pain, we can change. Pain can be changed. Pain can be addressed. It says, it is not a fact. There is no form that pain takes that will not disappear if seen aright or seen from the right perspective. So it is how we are seeing, perceiving, and thinking that is causing the pain that we experience. Now you might say, Oliver, I know you're really, into this spirituality. But the pain that I'm experiencing now has nothing to do with my perception. It has to do with, me hitting my head or me doing this or that, or I don't know where it came from. Well, that's why we're all here. We need to learn something. We need to expand our awareness. For pain proclaims God cruel. Pain in and of itself is a proclamation that God is cruel. Why? Because we say God created us. We say God made us. God made these bodies. So if God made these bodies, why would God make bodies, to first of all, to accept pain? That's the question we would ask. Why would a perfect God make an imperfect body? It said, how could it be real in any form? It witnesses to God the Father's. So pain in and of itself, it says, it witnesses to God the Father that there is hatred for his Son. Because what father would create pain? It's a question that we ask ourselves. What father would create a body that ends up in pain? He says, in sinfulness, it is a witness of God's hatred for his Son and the sinfulness he sees in us, and his insane desire for revenge and death. So here we're saying that pain is God's way of punishing humanity for our what? For our waywardness. That's the thought. That's the natural thought that comes through the mind of a human when he's been racked with pain. Why is God doing this to me? You've heard it. You probably said it. It says, can such a projection be attested to? Can such an idea be true? It's what it's saying. Can they be anything but wholly false? Can the idea that God is in the business of administering pain to humanity, can these ideas be but false? It said, can it be anything but false? It says, pain is but a witness to the Son's mistakes and what he thinks he is. Now we're turning the table here by saying that pain is not the effect of God punishment to the children of God, to humanity, because of what we've done. He's saying here that pain is really a witness or a proclamation to humanity and our mistakes and what we think of ourselves. When we have in other words, when we have a wrong perception of who we are, when we see ourselves as not being innocent, when we see ourselves as guilty, when we see ourselves as separate from God, when we see ourselves as sinful, when we see ourselves that way, when that's the self-image that we hold of ourselves. We're not getting into how we got that self-image, but we've already gotten into how we got that self-image, right? We were conditioned that way. We were taught that way. We were trained that way. But regardless of how we got it, the fact that we hold on to that as being wholly true, it said it is that self-image, having a self-image of ourselves that is not true. He said that is what is the source of the pain that we experience. That's the source of the pain. And pain comes in many forms. There's mental pain, psychological pain, there's physical pain, a spiritual pain. And the pain here is telling us that it all coming from our mistaken way of thinking about ourselves, our misperception of ourselves. When we hold a perception, when we hold an idea about ourselves that is not true, then what we are producing and what we will produce will not be very comforting. It will be painful. And so that tells us that the work has to be done in adjusting and shifting and making and accepting and embracing the image that God has of us, the reality that who we are as one with God and each other. We must embrace that. Without that, we will experience pain. So pain starts from the way we think. It's an inside out process. It's not an outside in process. It says, it says, pain is but witness to the son's mistake and what he thinks he is. It is a dream of fierce retaliation for a crime that could not be committed. So in other words, when we don't embrace the truth of who we are, then we open our mind up to think in the lines of being separate from God, which creates a sense of sin consciousness and guilt and fear. And in that sin consciousness, guilt, and fear, we think that pain is a retaliation for something that we couldn't even do. It's impossible for us to separate ourselves from God. It's impossible for us being the idea of God to be to leave our source, to leave the source of our idea. It's a crime that we can't commit. To be a sinner is impossible. To be anything other than God, what God created you to be, it is impossible. We can make up something different in our own minds and suffer the consequences of that in the form of many of different forms of pain. And that's what we do. That's what most of us have experienced. And we're doing that out of ignorance, not understanding that that's where it's coming from. Same pain, sorrow, grief, all of those are kissing cousins. And they come by way of us rejecting the truth of who we are and embracing the lie of who we're not. So it's a dream of fierce retaliation for attack on what is wholly unassailable. So it's an attack on that which cannot be attacked. Who we really are, who you really are as the innocent, sinless, guiltless child of God, creation of God, that can't be attacked. That is always intact. But what is not intact is the mind that believes that it's separate. That is what is attacked, and that's what does attack. That's what feels guilt and sin consciousness and fear. That's what is self-deceived. Because in reality, we remain as God created us. We've said it time and time again. And it's still true today. It's still true in this holy instant. And the instant that we embrace these realities as our very own is the time and the moment and the instant that pain began to dissolve out of our life. It says it's a nightmare of abandonment by an eternal love. To think that God is the source of pain is to think that God has abandoned us, that eternal love is not really eternal love, but it has a two-edged sword, that it'll love me in one moment and cut me in the other. And that's not true. Love is not a two-edged sword, as you heard the word say. It's another misnomer. The word of God is not a two-edged sword, as the word say. To say that the word of God is a two-edged sword is say God is schizophrenic. It's say that God is double-minded, and he's not. God is love and love only. We the one have created God as a two-edged sword. We the one that have created God in our own image, an image that's based on sin consciousness, guilt, and fear, and we feel like we deserve a punishment. And that's because we haven't embraced the reality of who we really are as God's loved child. And if we're God's loved child, there is no guilt, there's no sin, there's no punishment for us, and there's nothing to fear. So we've been lied to. We've been conformed to this world, as Romans says. We have been conned out of our true identity by an ego thought system, by a world that is supercharged with the belief in separation. And it has affected all the different areas of life, all the different avenues of life, from our religion to our politics to business and to the arts and to the sports, and to every facet of life is being supercharged by this idea of separation. But we are turning that which was turned upside down, we're turning it right side up. So we can alleviate all the pain in our life. Wouldn't you love to live a pain-free life? Well, it's possible, starting right now. And so, eternal love has not abandoned us, because love cannot leave what it has created. God cannot leave what he has created. God cannot be separate from what he's created. The wet can't be separate from the water. The sunbeam can't be separate from the sun. The waves can't be separate from the ocean. And neither can you be separate from your God, from your creator. It's impossible. Impossible. It can't happen. So pain is a sign. Illusions. Pain is, notice now, it's a sign. It's not real. It's just a sign that illusions, and we know what illusions are, that which appear to be real. So pain is just a sign that illusions reign in place of truth. It's a sign that we have embraced illusions over the truth. We have rejected the truth and accepted the illusion. We have rejected our true identity and have accepted the ego's identity. That's the sign that pain shares. It's an indicator. It's feedback to us that we're not thinking quite correctly. We're not thinking with the mind of Christ. We're not thinking with the thoughts of God, that we're thinking with the thoughts of this ego system, this ego thought system, this world of separation, this belief in separation. And we need to shift the way we're thinking. It demonstrates that God is denied. Pain demonstrates that God is denied, confused with fear, perceived as mad, and seen as traitor to himself. If God is real, there is no pain. Notice now, if God is real, there is no pain. If pain is real, there is no God. That is the whole idea. When we embrace pain as our reality, we're saying there is no God. But when we embrace our God as our reality, we're saying there is no pain. Because true pain is not of the body, it's of the mind. The body just is an indicator that pain is present. Where? It is present in the mind. It's present in the way we're thinking. For vengeance is not a part of love. We've all heard the statement, and that's written in text. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I will repay. And so we get this image of God, that God is, this big guy sitting up on a throne up in heaven somewhere, up in the sky, with a club in his hand, waiting on us to what? Mess up, so he can what? Get vengeance on us. That's the kind of idea that some of us have of a loving God, and we don't think he's so loving. And so we have remade God into our image and our likeness. And so this is what we think about. This is how we think, and this is what we bring about. So we bring about the pain that we experience because we're thinking in a way that is not true. It says, in fear. Notice now, vengeance and fear, denying love and using pain to prove that God is dead, has shown that death is the victor over life. The body is the Son of God, corruptible in death, as mortal as the Father he has slain. So all this ultimately comes down to the way we think about ourselves. We cannot think of our Creator any different than we think of ourselves. We can't think of ourselves any different than we can think of our Creator. So it goes back to the mind again. It goes back to the way we're thinking. And when we're not thinking the thoughts of God, we're thinking the thoughts that we have made that are totally opposite to the truth that is true always. And so we have to make a shift in our way we think. Paragraph 4 says, peace is such foolishness. It says, peace to such foolishness, what we just described. And holding God accountable for the pain in our life. And thinking that we're deserving of pain, we're deserving of punishment, we're deserving to be abandoned, we're deserving to be attacked because something that we've done that's wrong. And all this have come from the way we've been conditioned, the way we've been trained. And it's been wrong. It's an error, and the error needs to be corrected. And that's why we're here today, making a declaration that we choose joy, the joy of God, instead of pain. Instead of the illusion of pain, we embrace the nature of our Father, which is peace. So peace to such foolishness. The time has come to laugh at such insane ideas. So it's an insane idea to think that a loving God, that an eternal loving Father would only be interested in the punishment of that which he has created. That a loving Father that would despise that which he has created. Even natural parents have more love and more compassion for their children than the way we think of God sometimes. The way we think of God sometimes. And we need to abandon that foolish perception. We need to walk away from those thoughts. We need to make a different choice in the matter. And we do have the power to make that choice. No one can stop you from choosing to embracing the truth of your Creator and of yourself. Absolutely no one. So the time has come to laugh at this insane idea and all the other insane ideas that we hold in our traditional thinking about our Creator and about ourselves and about each other. We have been poisoned in our thinking by many sources, and it's time to stand up and choose for joy instead of pain, to choose for reality instead of unreality, to choose for your innocence instead of the insaneness of being guilty. You're not guilty as charged. You are free to be what God created you to be. You're free to experience that. There is no need to think of these foolish ideas as savage crimes or secret sins with weighty consequences. There's no need to think this way. There's no need to think that there's anything in your future, in your present, that is deserving of punishment. Let go of the thought that you deserve anything but the love of God. That's it. You're not deserving of punishment. God is not holding anything against you. You are the holy home of God. You are the innocent one. You've always been that. You'll always be that. You would have to fall asleep in a dream of separation and believing that you're separate from God and each other in order to experience these things like pain and suffering. We do it to ourselves because we've been bamboozled. We've been conformed to this world. But here in this process, we're being transformed by the renewing of our minds. There is no need to think of them as savage crimes, secret sins, or weighty consequences. Who but a madman could conceive of them as cause of anything? Who but a madman? And we're not madmen. That's not what God created. God did not create madmen. God created loving sons and daughters and placed his very own self in our nature. So he knows what's there in reality. We have just forgot. But now we're on a journey of remembrance. It says, these foolish ideas, their witness, pain. The madman, his witness is pain. It says, is mad as the madman, and no more to be feared than the insane illusion which it shears or which it protects and tries to demonstrate must be true. Pain is not true. Suffering is not true. Death is not true. Separation is not true. But the madness of believing these things make them to appear seemingly true as we look out in the world and see so much pain and suffering. We say, God must be true. It must be true. God is mad at us. That's the way we think. That's the way the carnal mind would think. Not knowing that the pain and the suffering that we are experiencing, the war and the fighting and the killing and the inequality and everything you see that is not loving, is happening because of the way we're thinking. God has nothing to do with it other than providing us the solution, which is the truth, to set us free. God is in the business of healing. God is in the business of wholeness, innocence, oneness, happiness, joy, peace, abundance. That's what God represents. It is our thoughts. Let's get down to so we're getting down to, this is the lesson for today. It is our thoughts alone that causes us pain. We have to embrace this. This is our only way out. The other way ain't working. Embracing pain is real, or embracing God for embracing the idea that God uses pain to, correct us or to punish us or to repay us, or all of that crazy madman thinking. That didn't work. We already know that don't work. That just only make us more mad and more painful. So the only real solution to the dissolution of pain and suffering is to realize that it is our own thoughts alone that causes the pain and the suffering. It's coming from us. But that's good news, because if it was created by us, if it was made by us, we can make the correction. We don't have to go and ask anyone for permission. We just make the correction. It says, it is our thoughts alone that causes us pain. Nothing external, nothing outside of us. This is nothing external to our mind can hurt or injure us in any way. This is good news. We always thought that it was something outside, circumstances, situation, conditions, what people were saying, how people feel about us. We thought that was the source, but that is not the source. The source of all pain and suffering, it comes from within our own mind. He says, there is no cause beyond ourself that can reach down and bring oppression. We're the only one that can oppress ourselves. Oppression doesn't come from without, but from within. This is great news. No one but ourselves can affect us. This is great news. There is nothing in the world that has the power to make us ill or sad or weak or frail. This is good news. But it is us who have the power to dominate all things that we see by merely recognizing what we are. It is through the recognition of what we are. It is through the recognition of the truth of who we are, recognizing it and embracing it and accepting it as our very own. It is said, this is the only power This is the only power to keep us pain-free, suffering-free, guilt-free, fear-free, to be free from anything that is not of God, that's anything that is negative, hurtful, oppressive. The only power and defense that we have is the truth of who we are, the recognition of what we really are, the embracing of what God created and not what we made. That is the antidote to it all. And we have the power to execute it. We have the power to stand in it in this very own moment, in this holy instant. It says, as we perceive the harmlessness, as we perceive the harmlessness in everything outside of us, these things will accept our holy will as theirs. And what was seen as fearful now becomes a source of innocence and holiness. Wow. So what this saying is that everything outside of us recognize who we are. And when we stand up and stand in that reality, that everything outside of us becomes not a source of fear, but a source of innocence and holiness. In other words, it is saying that everything outside of us recognizes that we are the God of this world, like God said in the creation story. He made man and given us dominion over everything, including pain and suffering and sorrow and grief and depression and anxiety and fear and guilt and sin and death, everything that is not of God. God has given us dominion, and we need to exercise our dominion over it by the way we think and stand in the truth of who we are as one with God. If it can't destroy God, it can't destroy you or me or anyone. But if we give over our dominion, if we give over our power to illusions, to lies, to deception, we're giving over our peace to it. We're not choosing for peace, but we're choosing for pain. But as of this lesson, we choose the joy of God instead of pain by embracing the reality of our true self. It's just that simple. And that's great news. Great news. And so, my holy brothers and sisters, think of this a while. The world you see does nothing. It has no effect at all. It merely represents our thoughts. What we see outside of us is a reflection of our inward thoughts. And it will change entirely as we elect to change our mind and choose the joy of God as what we really want. We don't want pain and sorrow and grief and punishment. But what we really want is the joy of the Lord, which is our strength. Your true self, your eternal, infinite self, the one self that we share with God and each other. It says that it is radiant in this holy joy, unchanged, unchanging, and unchangeable forever and forever. Who we really are is unchangeable forever and forever. And would we deny a little corner of our mind's own inheritance and keep it as a hospital for pain, a sickly place where living things must come at last to die? Will we use our minds for an illusion of pain versus the fullness of joy? The world may seem to cause you pain. It may seem that way. And yet the world is a place of causeless. The world is not a place of cause. The world is an effect. It's an effect of what we think. We project out our thoughts and we see it, and the world reflects it back to us. So the world is causeless. It can't do anything to you. It has no power to cause. It's an effect. It cannot make effects. Effects can't make effects. Only cause can make effects. As an illusion, this world as an illusion is what you wish. What we see in the world is a wish that we have. Where the wish coming from? It's coming from from being conformed, being conned out of our true peace. It says our idle wishes represents its pain. It says our strange desires bring it evil dreams. Our thoughts of death envelop it in fear, while in our kind forgiveness does it live. Pain is the thought of evil. Pain is the thought. Pain is a thought. It's a thought of evil. It's the thought of evil taking form and working havoc in our holy mind. Pain is the ransom you have gladly paid not to be free. In pain is God denied the Son he loves. In pain does fear appear to triumph over love. And time replaces eternity in heaven. And the world becomes a cruel and a bitter place where sorrow rules and little joy gives way before the onslaught of the savage pain that waits to end all joy and misery. This is the depth of our wrong thinking that we will fall into when we deny the truth of who we are. So lay down your arms and come without defense into the quiet place where heaven's peace holds all things still at last. Lay down all thoughts of danger and of fear. Let no attacks enter with you. Lay down the cruel sword of judgment that you hold against your own throat, and put aside the withering assaults with which you seek to hide your holiness. This is what we do to ourselves. But today we lay it all down. Today we put it all aside. We lay down every illusion that we've ever held about ourselves. Here will we understand there is no pain. It only comes in the knowing of the truth, the knowing of ourselves, the embracing of ourselves. There is no pain in the knowing of yourself. There is lots of pain and suffering when we reject the knowing of ourselves. Here does the joy of God belongs to you. This is the day when it is given you to realize the lesson that contains all of salvation's power. And this is the lesson, that pain is an illusion, that joy is reality. Pain is but sleep, but joy is awakening. Pain is deception, but joy alone is true. This is the lesson that we learn today. And so again, we make the only choice that ever can be made. And we choose between illusion and truth. That's the only choice that needs to be made. Do we choose for illusions, or do we choose for the truth? Do we choose for pain or joy? Do we choose for hell or for heaven? It is our choice. What will we experience? The choice is ours. And this is not something that we experience in the future. This is something that we're going to experience right in this moment, depending on our choice. And it's only but one choice to choose. We choose joy. We choose joy over pain. We choose awakening over being asleep. We choose truth over deception. Let our gratitude unto our teacher fill our hearts, as we are free to choose our joy instead of pain, our holiness in place of sin, and the peace of God instead of conflict, in the light of heaven for the darkness of the world. So today, in this holy instant, we choose the joy of God instead of the pain of illusions. Just that simple. This has expanded our awareness to know that our thoughts are so important. Our perceptions are so important. They determine what we see and what we experience. They are the source of everything that we experience. Nothing out there has the power over us. All the power is within us, unless we give it over to an illusion, unless we give it over to self-deception, unless we give it over to the lie of separation in the ego thought system. We are the holy home of God. We are the innocent children of God. God is not holding anything against us. It would be have to hold it against himself to hold it against us, because we are the one and the same. So today we choose joy, unspeakable and full of the glory of God. And all pain dissolves. All suffering dissolves in our life. Thank you so much. Workbook lesson 190 is a very important lesson. Think about it all through today. Practice choosing for joy in everything. And we'll see you on the other side. Have a great day. Bye-bye.